There's this very specific, very humbling experience that I think almost every dog owner has gone through.
Oh, I think I know where you're going with this.
You're standing at your front window, maybe with your morning coffee, and you see a neighbor walking their dog, and it is just, well, it's boring.
Boring is absolutely the goal in dog training.
It is painfully boring. The dog is just trotting along, there's slack in the leash, it looks up at the owner, sits at the curb without even being asked. It looks completely effortless. And then you look at your own situation by the front door, the harness, the special leash, a pocket just full of high-value treats, and, you just know that when you step outside, it's not a walk.
No.
It's going to be, as our source material so perfectly puts it, an audition for a demolition derby.
Yeah, that phrase,
Yeah.
it really stuck with me. It's funny, but it's also so visceral. It just captures that, that physical and emotional exhaustion of being dragged down the street.
Exactly. And that contrast between that perfect neighbor dog and the chaos of our own reality, that's what we're unpacking today. Right.
We are doing a deep dive into private in-home dog training. We're looking at a guide from DW Dog Training, which is based in Catonsville, Maryland. But I want to be clear that this isn't a how-to episode. We are not going to teach your dog to sit in the next 20 minutes.
No, and honestly, that's not what the source material is about either. What I found so fascinating is that it really pulls back the curtain on the logistics of it all, of behavioral change.
Right.
We all think of dog training as this sort of mystical thing, The dog whisperer comes in, touches the dog, and everything's fixed.
The magic hands.
Exactly. But this guide, it frames it as a structured process, almost like project management. We're talking a 4 to 8 week timeline, the specific laws in Baltimore County, which are stricter than you'd think, and the psychology of why training in your living room is so different than at some facility.
That where component is huge, and we're definitely going to get into the weeds on that. But I want to start with the timeline, because I think the biggest fear people have is that they're signing up for, like, a lifetime subscription, a forever commitment. Yeah, that's a valid fear.
I guess I just have a trainer now forever.
But the data from this guide suggests that if you're doing it right, it's the opposite. It's a temporary intervention.
Okay, so what are the hard numbers?
For basic obedience, and let's define that, we're talking reliable recall, loose leash walking, sit stays that actually work.
The fundamentals.
Right. For that, the roadmap is typically 4 to 6 weeks.
4 to 6 weeks. That sounds optimistic. I feel like I've been trying to get my dog to stop jumping on guests for like 4 years.
Well, and that's the difference between trying and a structured program. The efficiency comes from the format itself. In-home training cuts out the commute, sure, but it also cuts out what you could call the translation error.
What do you mean by that?
You aren't teaching the dog to behave in some sterile warehouse and then just hoping they remember how to do it when they get home. You're installing the software directly onto the hard drive, so to speak.
Okay, so 4 to 6 weeks for the basics. But what if it's not basics? What about the dog that lunges at every single bicycle or genuinely terrifies the UPS driver?
That's where the timeline shifts. The source calls those complex issues reactivity, aggression, deep-seated fear. Now you're looking at 8 weeks minimum, often longer.
And why is that? Just because the behavior is worse?
It's not just that. It's because the goal is different. With obedience, you're teaching a skill. With reactivity, you're trying to change an emotion. And changing how a brain feels about a threat takes a lot longer than teaching it where to put its butt.
That distinction between skill and emotion is really interesting. I want to circle back to that. But first, let's stick with the environment, the whole in-home versus group class debate.
A classic dilemma.
I think most of us, our default is a group class, right? It's cheaper, it's at the pet store, it feels social. But this guide argues pretty hard against it for certain problems.
It all comes down to context. I mean, think about where your problems actually happen. Does your dog act up at the pet store training center? Maybe. But the real demolition derby is probably at your front door when the doorbell rings.
Or at the backyard fence when the neighbor lets their dog out.
Precisely. The argument is that the training has to happen where the behavior is triggered. If you go to a group class, you're spending half your mental energy just managing the chaos of 20 other dogs. You aren't addressing the specific trigger of your doorbell or your mailman.
There was a really great analogy in the guide about language learning that clarified this for me.
Oh, yeah, I love this part. It's like, imagine you're trying to learn a totally new language, let's say Mandarin.
Okay.
You wouldn't start your very first lesson by trying to have a complex political debate in a crowded, noisy nightclub.
No chance. You can't hear anything. You don't know the words. You're stressed out.
Exactly. You start in a quiet room, you learn hello, thank you. You build that foundation in a zero distraction environment, which is your living room. Only after you have that basic vocabulary do you step out into the noisy nightclub.
And the noisy nightclub in this case is, what, a walk through the neighborhood?
A Saturday morning walk in Catonsville, yeah.
Which brings us perfectly to the location itself. This guide isn't just generic advice, it's tailored for Catonsville in Baltimore County. I was actually surprised by how much the local geography matters.
It matters immensely. It's all about density and exposure. Catonsville is this fascinating mix of single-family homes, townhouses, apartments, all packed really tightly together.
So privacy is basically non-existent.
And neither is silence.
Yeah.
If your dog is barking in a townhouse, your neighbors are involved.
Right.
But it's also the visual triggers. In a rural area, you might see one car an hour. In Catonsville, on one 10-minute walk, your dog sees a delivery truck, a school bus, joggers, a stroller, two other dogs.
It's a sensory minefield.
It is. A dog in a quiet cul-de-sac needs a totally different prep strategy than one living near a main road. The distraction is turned up to 11 by default.
And that leads right into the legal side of things, which I think a lot of us treat leash laws as suggestions or guidelines, maybe. But the source gets really serious about Baltimore County regulations.
This is the part that usually wakes people up. It's not just about having a polite dog. It's about legal compliance. Baltimore County has very strict at-large prohibitions.
At large. That sounds like they're a fugitive on the run.
In the eyes of animal control, that's basically what an off-leash dog is. The law states your dog can't be off your property unless it's under your control, which means a leash. There's no exception for, oh, don't worry, he's friendly.
So if my golden retriever bolts out the door to say hi to a neighbor, I've technically broken the law.
Technically, yes, you're in violation. And then you have the nuisance laws. Excessive barking isn't just rude, it's finable. But the really dark part of this is the dangerous dog classification.
The liability stuff.
Right. If your dog bites someone, and we're not talking a mauling, even a nip that breaks skin because you didn't have control, you enter this legal nightmare. You can face lawsuits. The county can require your dog to be muzzled in public forever.
Wow.
And you might have to carry special, very expensive insurance.
So teaching a reliable recall isn't just a party trick. It's an insurance policy.
It's risk management. In a dense place like Catonsville, obedience is your legal shield.
Okay, that definitely raises the stakes. So we know the why, we know the where, we know the risks. Let's walk through the how. The source lays out this clear roadmap, and it starts with week 1, the assessment.
Right. And this is where expectations and reality often collide. The guide is very blunt. Do not expect miracles in week 1.
That's hard for people, I think. You've paid the money, the expert shows up, you want to see the dog change right then and there.
Of course. But the trainer isn't there to flip a switch. Week 1 is data collection. They're just observing. How does the dog react to the doorbell? How does he greet a stranger? What's the dynamic between the owner and the dog?
It's like an engineer looking at the foundation before they start a renovation.
Perfect analogy. You're setting the GPS before you start the car.
Okay, so week 1 is observation. Then we move into weeks 2 through 4, the foundations phase. The guide describes this as, well, honestly, a little boring.
It is boring.
Okay.
And it's supposed to be. This is all low distraction learning. We're back in that quiet living room. You're teaching the mechanics, sit, stay, place.
But crucially, the dog isn't the only one learning here, is he?
No. And this is usually the aha moment for clients.
Yeah.
This phase is actually about calibrating the human. The source talks about teaching the owner about timing and treat delivery.
Timing? You mean like how fast I give them the cookie?
It matters so much. If you say sit, the dog sits. And then you fumble around for 5 seconds before you give the treat. The dog has forgotten why it's getting paid. It might be looking at a fly on the wall by then. You just rewarded the dog for looking at the fly.
That is terrifyingly specific. I have definitely done that.
We all have. This phase is about fixing that communication lag. It's about creating a clear, simple language between you and your dog in a safe space.
All right, so we've drilled the basics. We're in the living room feeling like pros. Then comes weeks 5 and 6, distraction proofing. This sounds like the final exam.
It's the real-world application. This is when you take those skills and see if they hold up when something actually interesting is happening.
Like the doorbell ringing for real.
Exactly. You do door drills, you have someone actually ring the bell, and you work through it. You do sidewalk encounters. The goal is to close the gap between understanding a command and obeying it.
It's the difference between I know what sit means and I will sit even though a squirrel is yelling at me.
Yes, and that is a massive psychological leap for a dog. A dog can be a total genius in the kitchen and a complete amnesiac in the driveway. This phase bridges that gap.
And then finally, phase 4. Maintenance. Which sounds a lot like when you finish physical therapy, but the doctor says you still have to do the exercises.
That is the perfect comparison. This is
Right.
about fading out the trainer. You might go to biweekly check-ins. The goal is just to prevent regression. Because, and the source is very blunt here, if you stop cold turkey, the behavior will slide back.
That leads perfectly into what I think is maybe the most uncomfortable truth in this whole deep dive, the owner's role. Because I think deep down, a lot of us just want to hand the leash to the expert and say, fix him, call me when he's good.
The board and train fantasy. But yeah, the source describes the owner not as a spectator, but as the primary instructor.
So the secret sauce isn't the trainer, it's the homework.
It is, 100%. The guide says the single most critical factor for success is the owner's commitment to homework. And it's not hours a day, we're talking 10 to 15 minutes, but it has to be daily.
The piano lesson analogy, right?
Exactly. If you send your kid to piano lessons once a week for 30 minutes, but they never touch the piano between lessons, what happens?
They don't learn how to play piano, they just relearn the same thing every week.
They tread water. And it's a waste of your money and their time. The source calls it compound interest. If you practice 15 minutes a day, the dog's brain creates those neural pathways. It learns exponentially.
But if you skip days,
If you skip days, you force the trainer to use your paid session for review, not for new stuff. You are paying a professional to watch you practice what you should have done on Tuesday.
wow, okay, that's a guilt trip I think every dog owner needs. So does this require a huge lifestyle change? Do I need to build an agility course in my yard?
Thankfully, no. Home prep is minimal. Clear away toys and food bowls. Secure your yard gates. And interestingly, they suggest creating a behavior log before the first visit.
A log, like a diary of bad behavior.
Basically, become a detective. Track the triggers. When did the barking happen? Is it only the mailman or anyone in a uniform? Is it only at 5 p.m. when the school bus comes by?
More data collection.
It saves so much time in that first assessment week. You're not guessing, you're presenting evidence.
Okay, let's pivot to the really hard stuff. We've talked about basic obedience. But what if your dog isn't just pulling? What if they're reactive? Or you have a new puppy that knows nothing.
These are the complex cases, and they need a totally different mindset.
Let's start with reactivity. The source makes this really important distinction between obedience and reactivity that I think people mix up.
They do. People think a reactive dog is just a bad dog that won't listen. But obedience is a skill. Sit is a mechanical action. Reactivity, the lunging, the barking, that's an emotion. It's usually rooted in fear or anxiety.
And you can't command an emotion away.
You can't tell a dog, don't be scared. If you yell sit at a dog having a panic attack, their brain is flooded with cortisol. They might not even hear you. So the training shifts to something called counter-conditioning.
How does that work?
You're trying to change the association. Instead of other dog equals threat, you want to rewire their brain to think other dog equals delicious cheese. You have to work under their threshold far enough away that they see the other dog but aren't freaking out yet, and you just feed them amazing treats.
So you're literally rewriting their emotional response.
Yes, and that's a biological process. It takes time. That's why those timelines extend to 8 weeks or more. It's therapy, not school.
That's a great way to put it. What about the other end of the spectrum? Puppies. They seem like a blank slate.
They are, but they have a ticking clock. The source emphasizes the socialization window, which is between 8 and 16 weeks of age.
That is a very tight deadline.
It's incredibly tight.
Yeah.
That's the period where their brain decides what's normal in the world.
Yeah.
If they don't have positive experiences with different people, sounds, surfaces, and other dogs in that window, they can develop lifelong fears.
So keeping your puppy in a bubble until they're 6 months old could actually create a problem.
It almost certainly will. Puppy training is all about prevention crate training, bite inhibition, good exposure, before bad habits can even start.
And finally, what about families? Because a dog doesn't live with just one person.
This is the classic mom says no, dad says yes problem. And it kills progress. If mom forbids the dog on the couch, but dad invites him up for cuddles later, the dog is just confused.
He was just gambling. Maybe this time it's okay.
Exactly. The rules have to work for everyone in the house. If grandma lives with you and she can't physically handle the leash protocol, then the protocol is useless. You have to train the humans to be a united front.
Consistency across the board. It really is a team sport.
It has to be.
Okay, so let's wrap this up. We've gone from the demolition derby walk to a structured 4 to 8 week plan. We've navigated Baltimore County laws and the density of Catonsville.
It's a journey from chaos to predictability. And I think that's the key word there, predictability.
And it really is an investment. You put in the hard work for a couple months to get, maybe a decade of peace.
That's the goal. But I do want to circle back to that idea of maintenance one last time. Training isn't an event that just finishes, like graduating. It's a lifestyle change, like getting in shape.
Right. You don't go to the gym for 8 weeks, get fit, and then just sit on the couch for 10 years expecting to stay fit.
Exactly. The muscle atrophies. The regression risk is so real. The fastest way to undo all that work is to stop practicing the week the trainer leaves. You have to integrate it into your daily life. Make the dog sit before dinner, wait at the door. It takes 2 seconds, but it maintains the standard.
It keeps the communication channel open.
Precisely.
This whole deep dive has me thinking. We start this whole process thinking, I need to train my dog. I need to fix this animal. But when you look at the emphasis on owner education, on our timing, our consistency, our own emotional regulation,
I think I see where you're going with this.
it really makes you ask the question, is the training actually for the dog? Or is this 8-week course really designed to train the human on how to finally communicate clearly?
And that is the provocative thought, isn't it? The dog usually knows what it wants. It's the human who needs to learn how to ask for what they want in a language the dog can actually understand. In a lot of ways, the trainer is there to fix the human's behavior just as much as the dog's.
A humbling thought for all of us.
Indeed.
Well, that's a wrap on our deep dive. Hopefully your next walk is a little less demolition derby and a bit more boring. Thanks for listening.